It's so exciting to see all of you today. Hello to you. And my name is Alex. Today we will watch interesting and quite enjoyable video. It will be kind of lecture. And I was talking to you about some of political experts, which I think they're the best if we are talking about experts about Russia. And today we'll watch with you Ekaterina Schulmann. And lucky for us that she also knows English. And lucky for me too, because I will be able to watch her video, her speech with you in English. And I think it is an amazing opportunity. Yeah, her level of English much better than mine. She is famous in Russia because she is talking fast, like where she has own program status, and you can find this. I did this thumbnail, Ekaterina Schulmann, how to write her name in English, you can see, and in Russian. Yes, in thumbnail. Anyway, one of the things why I like her opinion because she is using facts. She is not kind of biased. She has experience in background, and yes, she's a very, very interesting person. Anyway, and enough. Let's start to watch. This video is named "The Russian State of Mind," and sounds exciting. This video was made quite like it's quite fresh, 2 months ago. It was published at least, and yes, let's go watch it. But before we will start, you can support me. You can leave your like, you can subscribe, it would be nice, and also you can leave your comments. Yes, it would be very, very nice. I see already in our community Sam Smith Q. Hello to you, Sam Smith Q. Thank you a lot for your support. And CKS and J, I feel privileged to join your live chat 2 nights in a row. Oh, thank you. And Jay, thank you for your support. And hello to you. Hello to Thomas Lee. Hello to Paula. Hello to Lisa Marshall. It's always enjoyable to see you. And yes, she's a Russian political scientist. And again, when we are talking about political scientists, I believe that she's the best one. And I'm not joking if, example, yesterday we were watching video Heather Rock Richardson, if she is good in American history, but I believe that Ekaterina Schulmann, she's the best about Russia itself. You will not find anyone who will explain better than she will explain to you about what is happening in Russian with Russian government. And yes, she has own program. It is named Status. I'm sure that if you know Russian language, you definitely watching this program if you like you, because I love to watch your programs already many years, really. Okay, let's go. Hello, Thomas. I see Alex. It is you, Thomas. I see you. And let's go. Let's share screen. My advice for you before we will start, prepare coffee, tea, juice, whatever you like to drink. And yeah, it's unusual to watch Ekaterina Schulmann with you. I mean, like, I spent so many days by watching her lectures. Like, anyway, let's go.
welcome everyone to Brainwash Festival and to the Bali. We are so pleased to see so many of you joining us today here for the talk on the Russian state of mind. And today we are going to talk about what freedom of expression means when you live in an unfree country. And we are going to dive into this topic. We are going to talk about what your opinion is worth when you are in danger of expressing it freely. And also, can we really know what people think or feel when they live in an unfree society? And we will dive into this topic today with our speaker of the day. She is a renowned and famous political scientist. She's a very important voice of liberal Russians worldwide. And personally, I'm a big admirer of her work. Please give a warm welcome for Ekaterina Schulmann.
Thank you.
She's the best.
So for those of you who are less familiar with her work, let me just describe a little bit. Ekaterina is a prominent voice for the liberal Russian community worldwide. She is known for her academic work. She reaches millions of people via her studies, via her research, via her work for the media, and also via her very popular YouTube channel. Ekaterina, you are based in Berlin right now, after Russia labeled you as a foreign agent.
It was rather the other way around. I left for Berlin, and being already there, I discovered that the Minister of Justice considers me to be a foreign agent.
Right. A label that still dates from the Soviet times, which is basically used to, well, criminalize people who oppose the regime. Nowadays, it is back. We have a lot of colleagues of yours, of mine, who are declared foreign agents, unfortunately.
About 700 people overall.
Right.
So we are quite a group.
Yeah, that's... it's a big group. It's also kind of now a status that you're very good in your job.
One of the things, Paula, you're right. Alex is so excited about this lady because if we are talking about people who are respecting this political field and who is talking about Russia, she's one of the best, in my opinion, and I'm watching her many years, so that's why I'm excited to share and to watch her with you, because it is true, yeah, she's the best. And thank you, Paul. It is true. I have nothing to do with,
There were a couple of, well, maybe 3 or 4 black sheep among the community, but generally we are a brilliant crew. Artists, journalists, academics, good people overall.
Yes. Well, unfortunately, it also means you cannot do your work from within Russia right now, but we are very lucky and pleased to have you here today. My name is Iris de Graaf, and you might know me as the correspondent in Russia for the Dutch public broadcaster NOS. I used to work and live in Moscow over the past 3 years, also since the war started under this military censorship that I'm sure we will discuss today. And after the growing repression and the arrest of our colleague Evan Gershkovich from the Wall Street Journal, who is currently in prison, my company decided to pull me back this summer. So I'm also doing my work abroad, just like you.
But you've been in Moscow more recently than I was.
When was your last time that you were there?
Beginning of April 2022.
Right. The country, of course, changed dramatically, but of course we will also discuss that. And before we dive into conversation today all together, you will kick off and start with a little talk about public opinion in Russia nowadays. And I think you will also discuss with us whether it's possible and how to still get an idea of what Russians think and feel. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
This floor is yours, or take your time, are 2 of the most terrifying phrases in any language. However, I'll try to deal with my subject, but before that, I want to share with you a little episode, a little thing that rather dwells on my mind. Last thing I was reading on my phone before we started was a letter from a political prisoner, a young person born in 1993. He is now serving his term in Sverdlovsk region for a political crime. And as I now know, political prisoners, generally prisoners, get sent printed out transcripts of the programs that we do because they want to keep in touch with what's happening in the country. And there are no newspapers in Russia right now. And of course, you can get access to the internet in prison. So people who correspond with political prisoners, prisoners of consciousness, they print out transcripts. And whenever I am late with posting a link to a transcript, a text transcript of my weekly program, I get reminders that we need to send them to our correspondents. So imagine when everything you say in a studio, any little joke you happen to make, will be transcribed, printed out, and read in a prison cell. So this person writes his thanks to me for whatever, and then he asks the question, what do you think, Ekaterina Mikhailovna, after all that is over, and all that is one of those euphemisms people use most often, this situation or all this, все это, shall we be able to gradually build up an adequate, as he calls it, life in Russia, and not all this? By all this, he of course means the situation he finds himself in. So, talk about public opinion, about freedom of expression in these circumstances. Nonetheless, we need to try to form some idea, to grasp some picture of the developing.
Yeah, as I said before, she's using always facts. She likes to use some statistics, and it is nice. I want to look what we have today. Would you support Russia, Putin's decision? It is blue line to withdraw troops and start peace talks without reaching military goals. We can see before it was 14%, right now it is 39%. Gray line would not support Putin's decisions to withdraw troops and start peace talks without reaching military goals. And we can see before it was 47%, right now 39%. Wow.
And changing state of mind in a country which is neither free nor easily accessible. Two questions are asked most often when we deal with polling results in Russia or indeed in any other non-free country. First, is it possible to even try to get to know what people are really thinking? And second, if it's not a democracy, if it's a dictatorship, or as we political scientists call it, a personalist autocracy, therefore people's opinions do not matter in a way they matter in a democracy. So why even bother? Is it important what people think if they have no leverage? So let us try to, if not answer, at least approach answering those questions. Can we get to know what people think? First and foremost, what is called low response rate is not uniquely Russian, but an international problem. People generally don't want to bother answering questions, especially political questions. A person in any country is not bound to have stable political opinions. Many people begin to form an opinion when they're asked a question, or they just don't want to answer this question at all. Our American colleagues consider 30% response rate as normal. What does it mean? It means that out of every 10 people you approach, you as a pollster, 7 people refuse to talk to you. So you have opinion of 3 out of 10. Whenever you are told this percentage of populace, of a nation, of the people think this and that, just keep in mind response rate. In case of Russia, in the first months of the invasion, of the full-scale invasion, our response rate was between 5 and 7%. So more than 90% of all people approached by the pollsters refused to talk outright. Sometimes they refuse in the beginning, sometimes they stop talking when questions become political.
Yes, it is one of the problem when for people who is doing the researches, and in one of your in program status, she already was talking about this, and she said one of the things that people afraid about some consequences which can be after this, and that's why 90% of people, they kind of like, to be honest, if somebody would ask me in Russia, in Lysozavosk, some questions on the street, in the camera, and they have camera and microphone, and they're asking you a question, do you support this or not, I would say like, thank you. I would try to not answer and to say goodbye. And if you will watch example channel 1420, you will find out that sometimes people in Moscow, when he is asking in different places, people trying to avoid the answer directly their opinion. They're like, like, like you understand, like by yourself. Is it so necessary to explain? Why to bother yourself when you know everything? It's not necessary to put in words. And yeah, same situation here. I can understand that completely.
Which is only natural. If you have full-blown military censorship, as in legislation, to ask a question, do you love the president as he deserves to be loved, or do you want 15 years of penal colony, gives you very expressive, but perhaps not very informative results. Nowadays, right now, response rate is a little bit higher. People have adapted to this new situation. And by a little bit higher, I mean, and here I'm quoting response rates as published by an independent sociological entity, Russian Field, to which we are adapted by some of the information I'll be sharing with you. So their response rate currently is 16.7%, which is, again, better than 5, but it's not even 30. So there's this one problem. There's the second problem. If you ask a direct question, you get most often just repetition of the latest.
Alex, no, she's Russian. She's Russian, Sam Smith Q. At least yes, she's Russian. Thank you for asking this question, Sam Smith Q.
As TV propaganda. This is for two reasons. First, I have mentioned it, is downright fear of consequences. There have been cases of people prosecuted for participating in a street poll. Why? Because their faces were shown. It was done by, I think, Radio Freedom, Radio Free Europe. I don't know if they were aware of such possible consequences, but since repressive practices change all the time, I wouldn't hold them responsible. So they had a street poll asking people questions. And since it's videotaped, you can actually find a person. So there's direct danger first. Second, there's the thing called by sociologists the spiral of silence. And this is an important concept which I want to talk a bit more about. Many people consider, who are acquainted with this term at all, that spiral of silence means that people have one opinion, a person has one opinion, but says the opposite thing out of fear. Actually, spiral of silence is not exactly this. It is joining an imaginary majority. As I said, most people, well, many people, do not have any settled political opinion at all. So whenever they're asked a political or social question, they think, well, what do I think? I think like the others think. I'm a good person. I'm with the majority of other good people. And what do others think? And then you come up with the latest thing you've heard wherever. And you say it. The next person hears you and repeats it because he considers or she considers it the opinion of a majority. And then the next, and then the next. That's why it is called a spiral, because it grows wider and wider. Any state is aware of this, but a repressive state is doubly aware of this, because in a modern autocracy, its whole self-preservation depends on civic passivity. It depends on the idea that the whole people are united around the leader, around a certain concept of patriotism or whatever. And if you think differently, you are a marginal, bad little person. And what is even more important, you are all alone. So a person thinks, I'm against this whole thing, but if I say it out loud, my neighbors will tear me apart. And his neighbor, whom he is afraid of, thinks the same of him or her. This is how it works. So, in this environment, how do we, again, begin to form our idea of people's opinions? As I said, it's complicated, but it's not hopeless. What do? First, we use a multiplicity of data. We cannot afford to form our estimations on any single parameter, on any single poll. Generally, even in peaceful times, even in free society, the most useful thing sociologists do is they provide the so-called long rows. Same question asked for 10 years, 20 years, 2 years. And then you can see the dynamic. No figure means anything as a standalone. We are often asked to comment on the latest polling results. 38% of people said this and that. What does it mean? It means nothing. The only thing that it has meaning is not static, but dynamic. Not the level, but the trend. So we are watching the trends. And here, even simplistic questions like, again, do you love the president with all your heart, show something. So this is first. Second, we try, and our colleagues in polling services try to formulate their questions in such a way as to make it, well, less scary for the respondents to answer. I'll show you an example quite soon. So, we also watch answers to non-political questions. Consumer optimism, consumer behavior, anxiety levels, opinions on the best future for the children, or values that are important for you, values that you think Russia's future should be based on. I'll show you those too. And then we have all those many bits of puzzle. And we try to combine them to form some sort of coherent picture. It's tricky, and there's always a chance that the same pieces can be combined in a different way to form a different picture. Therefore, you want...
Sorry, I see your question, CKS and J. If 95% refuse to answer, then shouldn't be able to assume at least 80% of them are anti-war but pro their own lives? I do not think so, because people, it can be, I would not like immediately everyone is anti-war. Definitely, I believe that huge percent of these people, they're anti-war, but we don't know, 95, 80%, I don't know how many of them anti-war. But even if you tell, like, the fact answering in front of people, I mean, like, publicly, telling people that your example supporting Putin, it is also bad for people's image, because people, like, will look at you like, and some people will not like this. I mean, it doesn't matter, like, if, because people have different reasons. Example, some people, they're working in private, they have private business, example, and as a result, they like they will try to avoid political questions because, come on, to avoid problems. If just in case, it doesn't mean that everyone is not supporting, but it looks like probably it's possible. Like to, how old is she? I don't know, maybe close to 50, if I'm correct. I don't know how old she is. Thank you for these questions. And yes, I would not summarize everyone and to put like immediately, but fact, it's fact. That's why conclusions is better maybe to, that's why we do not know. That's one of the things.
Find much unity of opinion even among the expert community, inside and outside of Russia. And by the way, I said we cannot afford to base our conclusions on any one result, nor can we afford to dismiss anything. If some sociological service is pro-Kremlin and the other is an organization foreign agent, there are physical persons foreign agents like myself, and there are organizations and NGOs foreign agents. So one of the oldest and most respected Russian sociological services, Levada Center, is a foreign agent, has been since 2013 for 10 years. Therefore, by the way, they can't do electoral polling. They can't ask questions related to elections, which is no great loss in case of Russia. Not much meaning in this anyway. So we cannot say FCIOM, the All Russia Center for Public Opinion, is pro-Kremlin, therefore I won't look at their results. Or this is Levada, they're foreign agents, therefore good people, I will form my estimation based on them only. Again, we cannot afford that. FCIOM is a weird company, but it's a big one, and most of the people there are qualified sociologists, so sometimes they have useful results there as well. I will also put a kind word for one of my favorite sources of sociological information, the Institute of Sociology of the Russian Academy of Sciences. They are not political, but they do long-term surveys on various types of social markers. I would even say they ask philosophical questions, which is not useless. So I use their data as well. So coming back to the most toxic question of all, attitudes towards the war. Very roughly speaking, by today, by October 2023, we have, and we've had for some time, approximately 3 groups of people. The so-called pro-war, the militarist camp, people who not just support the war, because supporting the war often means passive loyalism. This is what authorities do, they know best, so it's their thing. But the militarist camp is those who support the war not because it is Putin's war, but because they like the war as it is, and who would not approve of a peace agreement. So here we have them. The gray line. Those who would not support Putin's decision to withdraw troops and start peace talks without reaching military goals. So we see how by July 2023, their number dwindled from 47% overall to 39%. I personally think that the most important movement in this respect happened about the end of last summer, beginning of autumn 2022, when the militarists and the loyalists parted ways. Let me try to explain. In the beginning of this whole thing, to support the special military operation was to support the president and vice versa. But when Russia suffered or enjoyed a number of military setbacks, and it became evident that war is dragging on without achieving the results declared at its start, opinions changed. Loyalists were still loyalists, the so-called loyalistic core, who support the authorities because they are authorities, in favor of the status quo always. These are, again, relatively good people, by the way. They ensure societal stability. There is a very rough estimation on the part of sociologists that if you have about 30% or more of this loyalistic core, then your situation is stable. If it goes below the watermark of 30%, you are in trouble. So they were the loyalists, but the militarists began to be unhappy with the president, not because he has started the war that didn't go the right way, but because he's not waging this war energetically enough. So they were the militarists. Russian authorities became aware of it about 6 months after this process started, and they took measures to quieten this ultra-patriotic sector. 2 of the most prominent voices in this strata were Yevgeny Prigozhin of the blessed memory and Igor Strelkov, now in Lefortovo prison. So Prigozhin is dead. So one is dead, another is in prison. It's not just liberals that an autocracy is after. It doesn't need any self-organizing activity, even in its own support. So, you see that the number of those who would support the decision to withdraw troops is relatively stable, while the pro-war camp is losing momentum. Why? Well, for self-evident reason, the war is not getting anywhere much. It is still, it has been for some months, the single most important parameter in determining a person's attitude towards the war being age. So,
Yes, the young or poor or internet users against. One moment. I need probably to move my screen to show this picture to you better, because why is it a turning point? We can see here age prerequisites of the stated support for the war. Ages, age 55 plus, the trust in the official sources, confidence in Russia's victory, expecting of the war to end soon, increasing in income because of the war. Non-support for the war, younger than 55 years, getting information from the internet, especially using VPN, dismissal from work, loss of a business, expected deterioration of welfare, decrease in income because of the war. And it is an interesting tendency. The main reason for the Russians' change of heart. The war drags on and on. Russians believe that the longer the war lasts, the fewer chances Russia has to win. Expected duration of the special military operation. Okay, it is good, quite information. To be honest, I think that all of you already knew this information. I think that, but to see these statistics, I believe it is kind of good. When I was watching other statistics, how many people supporting the war, there was a little bit different data information, but it also depends what kind of resources you are using, because you can find Levada, you can find Tsiom, you can find some other in the kind of like resources inside of Russia, many organizations, but some of them kind of giving results which is like beneficial for some groups of people to see. Okay.
So 55 plus, almost, well, the majority of people aged 85 plus are pro-war. They are TV watchers. Their main source of information is TV. There's another factor. Well, age is, again, the single most important. Nothing else matters that much. Whether you are living in a small town or in a big city, whether you're a man or a woman, men are slightly more supportive, women slightly less so, but that's not so important as age. The second parameter is financial well-being. And here, it didn't go the way one would expect. The better off are more supportive of the war. Why is that? If we speak in strictly economic terms, the Russian middle class is now mostly consisting of state servants, people working in law enforcement, security services, or working for state corporations, state banks, state media. They have relatively high and stable incomes, and those incomes are dependent on the state. Since 2014, the state has been hiring more and more people directly and indirectly. It is now, if not the primary, well, one of the largest job providers in the economy. Again, by very rough estimation, about 30% of Russian economy is state-owned or state-controlled directly. About 30% is the legal business, private business, and about 30% is the so-called gray zone. Gray zone doesn't mean, I don't know, mafia money or anything criminal. It's just this low-level economic activity, the self-employed, the smaller businesses that do not come on the radars of official statistics. And by the way, it's those 30% that provide much of this dampening effect for the Russian economy, makes it resilient, adaptive, allows people to both earn their livelihood and provide services so as to avoid feeling the bite of economic crisis too sharply. What affects this group of people or this economic strata is inflation, which is a huge problem right now. So, age, information source, and the degree of wealth or poverty. So poor people are not supportive of this whole thing, which comes in contrast with the general idea that payments for the mobilized or payments for those who sign contracts with the Ministry of Defense are so large, and they're enormously large, as to produce a sort of euphoria in those stratas of society. This, well, people do get paid. And the money is unlike anything the state has been paying its people for, whatever, for their life, for their work, for their death. It is unique in the history of relations between the Russian state and Russian people. But there are not so many people enjoying it. So it doesn't seem to have any visible effect on their general opinions. So about the turning point, or about the main thing which makes people doubt or waver in their support of the special military operation. And this one factor is time. You see how more and more people, as time goes by, considers that this operation will go on for a year or more. Again, it may not be visible from the outside, but initial expectations, of course actively supported and propagated by the state media, were of the, exactly, how is it called, a special operation.
One of the things about timing, I want to tell this, my opinion, because from the beginning, like, because it was called from, she said this special military operation. It was supposed to be from the beginning by Russian government to happen like for 3 days, and everyone will happily forget about this, and they have this illusion in Moscow that people willingly to go to towards Moscow hacks. But as a result, of course, it is not, we can see already after a couple years that it is already like real war, and it was a war real from the beginning. And as a result, condition, like people decided, people were changing their minds slowly, and right now, the more people believe that it will be for during years, maybe decade it will be happening, and it will be for sure until Putin will be in power, or like he will not be able to finish this war. It looks like this, and I saw this. Like I've heard about this many times, and maybe because I watched your program status of Ekaterina Schulmann, that's why I already know kind of this thing. Yes.
Something on the Crimean model, but faster, larger, and even more spectacular. So it had to be, again, something short and sweet. But then it dragged on and on and on, and body count piled up and up and up. And even if we consider the sensibilities of the Russian society to be not too high in this respect, still nothing goes nowhere. So we are still fighting for either Avdiivka or Klishchiivka, or Sovetskaya or Pervomayskaya, whichever. And it's not quite clear who gets what. So it's not something to arouse the enthusiasm of the people. And this is one of these indirect questions that I've been mentioning. This is the survey done regularly every week, done by the Public Opinion Fund, which is kind of private sociological entity, but also on the loyalistic side. They ask this question, which I like very much. What mood do you think prevails among those around you? Calm or anxious? Why is it a good question? If we ask a person about his or her calmness, then of course the answer is, well, I'm as cool as a cucumber, but everybody else is just running around the ceiling. So they ask the question about people around you. So look at this. Look at this. Expressive graph. So this is, of course, calm. This is anxious. And this is the turning point, September 21st, 2022, a date which is of much higher importance to the majority of Russians than the actual beginning of the invasion, mobilization. Look at this anxiety level hitting the ceiling in a very literal way. Authorities were quite aware of that. By the way, do you remember how long the so-called active phase of mobilization started? I had to check it recently for one of my publications, and I was surprised to see that it was actually declared over on the 17th of October. So it lasted less than a month. And see the overall results. So this is September, this is the middle of November, 2022, and this is next. 2022, November, you see we still have anxiety. Then it goes a bit down in March, seems to be quiet time. Then spring and summer seasons are very important for a Russian. We are usually in a better mood when the weather is warmer. Also, higher vitamin consumption, does this to you. Vitamin D is always in deficit in Russia. So, but I must say that this is the middle of October, 2023. We have not yet reached the pre-mobilization anxiety levels. Right now, we are...
Yeah, it is very interesting thing that because nobody, they started mobilization, and nobody said that mobilization is stopped. That's one of the things, because they declared about partial mobilization, which is like a real mobilization without any kind of restrictions. It is partial. It is a real just mobilization. But at the day of the end, by the end of the day, they didn't have this paper that we finished mobilization tomorrow, yesterday, or we will finish tomorrow. No, nobody is doing this, and you can find this on YouTube videos when they're trying to find people to mobilize. As a result, not so many people who wants to go to this war.
Again, a bit more stable than we previously were, but look at these lines overall. They look like a cardiogram of a person having a heart attack. It's not normal. You can't live like that for a long time. Well, you can, but it's not good for you. It's not good for your overall health. It's not good for the societal health.
Yeah.
So, what we are trying to find out right now is to distinguish between those groups that I mentioned, the militarists who want war continued at all costs, the pro-peace camp that want it over as soon as possible without much attention to the results. So, This is
I want to look a little bit closer at these graphs, statistic. Here we can see if Putin tomorrow will announce new attempt to take Kiev, will you support his decision? And if tomorrow Putin will sign peace agreement or will stop special military operation, will you support this agreement? And we can see this graph. Those who is supporting war, they're against peace agreement. And those who is not supporting this war, they for peace agreement. And neutral, 33 and 41%, it is those who is neutral in both situations.
This is the survey done by the Russian field. I have mentioned them. So peace agreement versus march on Kiev. The red is January, February 2023. The blue is June. So for escalation, new march on Kiev against peace agreement. 27 in January, February, in June 23. Against new march on Kiev for peace. 34, 33, more or less the same. And the neutral, who would support any decision. You see, 33, 31, 41. What does it mean? It means that the militaristic camp is definitely losing ground. Pro-peace remains more or less the same, but more people delegate responsibility to the authorities. We may call this position irresponsible or infantile, but it's a very natural one for a citizen in an authoritarian country. It's your thing. You started it for reasons best known to yourself. We let you do it. So whatever you decide next, we'll agree to that too. Do whatever you want. Don't meddle with us too much. If we look at the behavior of the authorities rather than listen to what they publicly proclaim, we'll see that this is a, I would say, unified opinion, both of the authorities and of society. Look how mobilization was conducted. Look how new soldiers are being gathered. The president doesn't say, like Stalin said in June 1941, brothers and sisters, now it's time to defend the motherland. What authorities say is this: go and get paid. We'll pay you so much as you've never been paid before. So it's voluntary. Even mobilization was voluntary. The degree of this, well, informed consent can be questioned, but still there was no direct violence. Now we know that conscripts, the regular conscripts, are being pressured into signing contracts. I could talk a lot about various legislative changes implemented to make it easier, but I won't bother you with too much detail. The thing is, for the powers that be, it is also their special military operation. If they want your help, they pay you for it. They don't ask it of you as a patriotic duty. So in this respect, as I said, there's a kind of resemblance between what people think and what authorities do. Now for something a bit different.
Yeah. If you will vote for candidate for president, which result you want to see? Which result of his work you want to see? You want to see number one, 48%. The people want to see improving quality of life, economical quality and material quality of life. Social improving in social sphere, 31%. 24% peace and stopping war, to stop war. Political and law improvements, 14%. 8% nothing, no results, everything is well, well for them. And 2% say that they do not go to vote on elections. 18% they didn't give answer.
We'll have, but then related as well. We are going to have, well, I can't call it election in good faith, but an electoral.
Sam Smith Q, thank you for your message. And I see this, Alex. Listening to her speak also shows how first language, language English speakers are spoiled. I would say you and her are about the same level English. I have heard you occasionally swallow words. The way why she is swallowing, I mean, like, she is famous in Russia because in her program she's talking fast. Like in Russian language, she's speaking so fast, and she's like giving this information like pretty fast. That's like she's famous in Russian social media, and not all, everywhere, because she's talking fast. Here, maybe she's talking much slowly, maybe because she's using English. I think this is one of the reason. I speak slowly in English too, because come on. But thank you for giving me compliments, because I believe that she has much better level of English, and she has knowledge of terminology for sure.
Event in March 2024, presidential acclamation. Yeah, some of my colleagues call it acclamatory elections. Russian Field did this survey in September, asking people what do they want their candidate to do? What do they want from the person they would support as a presidential candidate? So answer number one, to make people's life better materially, making their lives economically better, 48%. To make social sphere work better, more or less the same thing, 31%. Peace, end of war, 24.
Huge
Political
percent.
and legislative reforms, something else, nothing. It's fine as it is, 8% of happy people. I don't go to elections, just 2%. Perhaps other people who don't go to elections, they don't participate in polls either. And I don't know, 18. So see the first three most popular answers. And this is a curious one too. As I said, to ask direct questions about the...
In our live stream, once I was showing exactly this statistic, which you can see on the screen. No, wasn't it? It was from September, these results on September 2023, from 2 to 10, which from the next characteristic of candidate to president of Russia you think is more attractive? What kind of character of president of Russia should have? And you think, and we can see military attractive more 27%, red it is like not attractive, like light blue it is attractive, red it is not attractive. 42 it is like so-so, it is neutral more. Younger than 40 years, 23% thinks it is attractive, characteristic for Russian presidents. 35 not attractive, 40 it is like so-so, neutral. Businessman 18%, woman 17% thinks it would be attractive if a president of Russia will be a woman. And interesting, person from Dagestan, example, region. I don't know how it's named. 4% thinks it is attractive. 42% doesn't like this idea because probably of Islam, or maybe because they have association with this figure. His name is head of Dagestan. What kind of his name? Head of if you will remember his name, I forget. I think you already know. Sexual orientation. If it is 80% of people who do not want this person to be from minority, to be from LGBT community. 80% do not want. Wow, it is a lot.
Incumbent is more or less useless. There is no such thing as support in a non-free society. In order to support something, you have to possess a certain resilience of your own. You have to have agency. If you don't have that, then you can quietly agree to the status quo or to be quietly unhappy about the status quo. It is not support. If you want a practical proof of this, well, this June 24th, the abortive military coup orchestrated by, again, Yevgeny Prigozhin of the blessed memory, anyone went out in defense of the national leader? Not a single soul, not a single soul. The most of the support he got from his own guys was governors of the regions writing telegram posts advising people to stay at home, which is, again, not much in the sense of standing like, a human wall in order to protect the beloved leader of the nation against the mutineers. So,
yeah, it is very interesting thing what she's talking about, because majority of people, like, there was, I believe, about this attempt of revolution, but in reality it was kind of trade to show everyone what he can do, this private military organization of Prigozhin, it was before, and nobody was trying to give hand of help to president of Russia, and I think next time nobody will help him too, because if there will be such attempts or something kind of similar, because they are with him, it's showing us this, that until they have benefits, these surroundings, and until this elite beneficial to be with Putin, they will have support him, but they will not give their lives for this, for sure. Because why to bother? Because like they know he is already pretty old, he is already 70 years old, and there will be definitely some changes, maybe not 2 years, 5 years, but 10 years, there will be changes for sure. Like it is something inevitable. That's why kind of their logic you can seem kind of understandable. And it is very interesting statistics which is shown to us, because it is helping us to understand. That's why her video is named The Russian State of Mind. It is helping to understand why people support and why people do not support. And for person as for me, for future student in political science, it is interesting to look at this statistic too.
So, the question is, what characteristic of a candidate will be perceived by you positively, blue, negatively, red,
Right.
and with indifference or neutrality? So what features in a candidate attract you, appall you, or leave you neutral? So if a candidate is from the military, 27% are positive about it, 28 negative about it. By the way, it's remarkably the same as about a candidate who's a woman. 28% only is negative, 53 say it doesn't influence their attitude, and 17.
I believe that Russia already had empress. Like when Russia was as a Russian Empire, you can find Ekaterina the Great. She was famous, and Russia already had women leaders. They were like quite successful in a lot of fields, and that's why people kind of looking towards women as a leader quite positive. I think it is good results.
Would applaud it. So the most dislikable feature in a candidate is, of course, belonging to a sexual minority. That's Russian state propaganda at its best. But the second most repelling feature is being over 70. Whom can those people mean, I wonder? So 68%, which is again comparable to belonging to a sexual majority, which is twice as bad as being Jewish. And much more, it's much worse than being from Northern Caucasus, by the way. You see, 58% don't care if the candidate is Jewish or not. High degree of tolerance. But age is really bad. So, as you will readily perceive, this is the indirect and safe way of saying we are tired to death of our beloved incumbent. But we can't say it out loud for self-evident reasons. Now for the very last. I know it's hard to read even for those who read Russian, but I'll try to make it understandable.
Yes, it is a lot to read, and it is a statistic about. I cannot see top of this.
This is my.
Yes. Now I see. Yeah, I will give you opportunity to translate this because I will not even try. I just will look a little bit if you know Russian. It is. Based in politics of Renaissance, it is what kind of quality you need to have. Oh gosh, I will not try to translate this.
My favorite Institute of Sociology of the Russian Academy of Sciences. And what they do is they do a really long survey. This is 1995, and this is July 2023, already more than a year after the start of the war. They ask this question: what values you think should be the basis of, the question is also curiously formulated, policy for reviving Russia, which kind of implies that the country needs to be rebuilt. So, just look at this last column. 3 most popular values. Number 1,
Yes.
and it has, I think, almost always been the most popular one: justice. Justice, справедливость, it's one of the most complex terms in Russian language. It's a kind of umbrella term. It can mean different things. We Russians know, in every given situation, instinctively know what is справедливо and what is not справедливо. Sometimes it means justice. Sometimes it means exceptions from justice. Sometimes it means equality. Sometimes it means an exception. Sometimes it means mercy.
Yeah, I think that she's right when she's talking about this because справедливость in Russian, it is quite a wide terminology, and it is this terminology can touch so many areas, and that's why you can put it as like I like how she said this under this word, like under umbrella, so many stuff, or like big huge bag, and you can put there so many things. Justice can be справедливость, can be anything, and yes, it is interesting, and I want to show this here statistics again, because
we Russians know in every given situation, instinctively know what is справедливо and what is not справедливо. Sometimes it means justice. Sometimes it means exceptions from justice. Sometimes it means equality. Sometimes it means an exception. Sometimes it means mercy. Sometimes retribution. But again, it is important to a Russian mind, this justice or fairness. Number two, peace. You see, 33% in 1995, almost the same number, 29% in 2023. It was way less popular in the rich and quiet 2000s. Number three, order. Ordnung. 21%. It was more popular in the...
And you can see number 4, it is human rights. Number 4, human rights, and it has quite a high percent. And laws. Law, it has like also huge percent. Freedom, it is on and equality. Freedom here and equality. Wow, it is quite...
90s. Now people are a bit fed up with this kind of thing, but still it is popular. On the same level of popularity, and you see growing human rights. Human rights, number 4. Now let's look at the bottom of this table. This is державность, oh my God, how to translate it? Statehood, the greatness of the state. 7%. Yeah, 7% was faring way better 15 years ago. Nation, 4 to 6. It was 7 in 2000. Not that much. Orthodox religion, my favorite one. It was a whooping 8% in 1995, and now it's 3.
What's
By
happened?
the way, one thing I want to tell you, the degree of influence enjoyed by the Russian Orthodox Church is disproportionate in comparison to its actual influence on the minds and souls of the congregation. It's an administrative body. It is not a church at all in a sense. There's an independent church in even such neighboring countries like Georgia or Ukraine, where a church is a political actor in its own right. In Russia, it is not. It's just a state department.
And I believe that's why one of the reasons why it is people do not believe in the church as organization, because it is not independent. As a result, we can see so low results in statistics, and it is sad. It is really sad. It is showing about this vertical of power, and yeah, such statistics not giving you again such statistics giving you help to understand again the general picture about Russian state of mind.
It's not very popular, even as a state department. So, nation, 6. Russian Empire, 5. Well, private property is not doing too well either. It was 14%, now it's 3%. But I suspect this is because it is perceived as a thing of course, not as something that is needed for the future. So religiosity overall is even worse than Orthodox Church, it's just 1%. So, pretty normal set of values, don't you think?
And you can see here capitalism. It is 1, 2, 3, 3 from the bottom line. 3, we can see 3 before it was in 95, and right now it has 2 points. Capitalism is also decline in Russian mind, like it is not so, losing.
So human rights, law,
People's
freedom,
mind.
equality. Doesn't look like a totalitarian state to me. Looks like a suspiciously normal one. So this is the last one, promise, frankly, yes. From the same source, 2023, fresh results. Respondents' opinion on how Russia should build its relations with the outside world. So actively develop relations with the rest of the world, reduce its activity and focus on internal problems, stay as they are now. So this is for more openness. This is for more isolation, but not more external aggression. This is for things.
I want to look by myself. Russia should reduce its activity in the international stage and focus on its internal problems. You can see it is higher and higher. My personal about this opinion as Russian, I believe that Russia should focus on internal problems, only on these problems. Do not go to any countries to focus on own development, on own science. Do not go to war on neighbor countries and to decide problem with education, with quality of life and stuff like this. And you can see on these statistics that this tendency and people thinking more and more about internal problems. Yes. It is very interesting statistics, I want to tell you.
Things as they are. So things as they are not that popular. The most popular answer is actively develop relations with the rest of the world. And 30%, less than it was in 2016, by the way, is focus on our own internal problems. And this is one last thing I want to say. If we do have some sort of regime change, regime transformation, and this imperialistic craze goes away with this very specific generation which mostly supports it, and it's not just 55 plus, it's rather 70 plus, to be frank. So when this goes away for natural reasons, we may look forward with whatever emotions we may have about it to some sort of Russian isolationism. I suspect that foreign adventures of any sort will be heavily compromised by the results of this special military operation. And Russia will try to kind of concentrate on itself.
I want to these days.
Sad for, as it is for many of us, there is a rather widespread idea that the outside world is not friendly to Russia. It is so popular because it corresponds to the atomization and low trust levels within the Russian society. And we are notoriously low trust society. Both institutional trust and interpersonal trust is low. Low as compared to other countries with comparable level of urbanization and economic development. So people don't trust each other, nor do they trust institutions. It's natural for them to assume that all the world outside is constructed in the same way. So everyone for himself, no one wants anything good for us. We have to concentrate on ourselves. This is, as I said, a much more popular, much more widespread notion than the aggressive imperial one, which is supposed to have such a hold on the imagined Russian mind. On this, I will stop and thank you very much indeed for your patience in trying to consume this whole wealth of statistics.
I like last message because I believe that this 30%, it is shown by statistics that I was always, like many years, even when I was student, wanted to Russia concentrate on yourself, not on neighbor countries, not on Ukraine, not on Kazakhstan, not on Belarus. Because and to not go, especially it is a aggressive policy towards neighbor countries. It is like I want to have peace between countries, obviously, and to concentrate Russia on own problems. And of course, as she said, that interesting thing that even before she showed statistic that 55 plus like age of people who is supporting this policy which is going now. But then at the end she said that in reality it is close to 70 plus or maybe 60 plus. But she said that 70 plus people who is supporting such aggressive policy towards neighbor countries. And I think it is, of course, when she said that these people will go away naturally, Russia will close in itself. And by close, I mean do not go to neighboring countries and no wars and self-development. So that's what I want to have for Russia, to close in this, because Russia had this golden period of time, golden century when Russia was closed more on yourself, like, and that's what I want for Russia. Maybe that's one of the mind that is the worse is becoming in Russia right now. The more this message will spread, because the more problem Russia will gain right now inside of Russia, the more this message will be people will like, okay, how we can go toward another country when we have problems inside, like how we can go to help others, example, if we or try or to have a war with neighbors while we have not heated houses inside of our country. In Moscow, example, or in forest of Russia, we do not have gasification everywhere. This is one of the reasons why this message is kind of popular right now, becoming more popular.
I'll be ready to answer your questions should you have any. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ekaterina, so much for your insights. I have prepared...
It was not 20 minutes, was it?
It was not 20 minutes, so we're kind of running out of time. I prepared, I think, a list of 10 questions, and I'm sure the audience also has a lot of questions, but we're going to keep it very shortly. I will ask you one question about, well, basically summing up what you just described, because if we look at general polling from the state pollsters, it's kind of hard to get a picture of what Russians think, which is obviously clear after your talk. So many things influence the self-censorship actually that Russians use and are afraid to answer to questions. But if we look at tendencies, at trends, if we look between the lines, we can still get an idea of some kind of public opinion in Russia. How important do you think that this public opinion is nowadays to keep researching it? And also, is it effective on, for example, policy changes or maybe even regime change?
This is the question that I have asked in the beginning of my presentation, but failed to answer because it's the most complex one. The answer, and that's the proper expert answer to almost anything, is both yes and no. Russia is not a democracy. Therefore, you can't change a government on the next elections if your opinions have changed. But to say that there is no connection whatsoever between the state machine and the people would be wrong. There is a connection, but it's a different type of connection than in a democracy. So there is no electoral rotation. However, the state apparatus and Russia is ruled by a very numerous bureaucracy. is not isolated from society. It forms part of society. It breathes the same air. It consumes more or less the same information. So whenever there's this general understanding that things are not going in the right direction, it affects the workings of this state machine. No ruler rules alone, least of all a dictator. Every autocracy is unfortunate in its own way, to quote Tolstoy. They make themselves unhappy in a different manner. For example, there's Turkey, also a personalist autocracy, a highly repressive one. When there was an abortive coup in 2016, it was followed by a massive repression campaign. Tens of thousands of people were arrested, imprisoned. There was a very real purge in the military, state service, education, cultural sphere. But in 2022, 2023 was it, elections, during the latest presidential elections, in Turkey, this autocrat who could launch a repressive campaign could not tune a little bit election results so as to win in the first round, which would be the most natural thing for any Russian to imagine he would do. The same in Russia. You can start a war, but you cannot introduce and implement quarantine measures that the most liberal democracies of Europe could do. You can kill people, but you can prevent them from going to a cafe. Death is preferable to that. So whenever there is something that people really don't like, again, we all would wish they would dislike going to a useless war with a neighboring nation. But they, for example, are suspicious of QR codes being implemented in legislation. And when the government is aware of that, they put their own bill on a shelf. They do not proceed with it, so as not to irritate the people too much. So there's always this testing of ground going on. By the way, one of the downsides of not having real elections is that you become absolutely crazy about trying to understand public opinion. The Kremlin is doing their own polling 24/7. Yeah. They use the same results that we have. They conduct the so-called secret polls. And now there's a campaign to, I think, question every citizen of Russia in advance of the presidential elections. So again,
I wanted to tell about this because these days they're probably giving like so much money to these organizations which are doing these statistics, and you can find so huge variety of statistics in Russia, because before elections probably they gave them billions and they're doing these elections basically on every kind of topic, because probably they want to know before elections what they need, how to represent Putin, or maybe how to understand society, in what conditions society is. And that's why right now you can find so much information about statistics inside of there can be ridiculous questions and good ones. Like this is one of the thing for sure.
Influence, but it is not direct, and it is very complex indeed.
Yeah, I just got a very strict look from the host. I have 1 minute left, and I want to give the audience an opportunity to ask at least one question. So, is there anyone who has a question that cannot wait before we have to wrap it up? We need way more time, I know, but
it's a complicated subject.
It is. If there is nobody from, then I will just take. Yeah. Oh, great. Let's go for it.
In 1917, the regime was changed when soldiers turned around and stopped fighting. Do you think that there's a chance that the conscripts in Russia will spontaneously begin to refuse to fight in the war?
It is true about 1917. Most of the soldiers then were from the peasantry, and they had to return extra fast to their native villages because a land change was going on. The bits of land were established among different owners, so they had to be there to see their families are not dispossessed. Today, not so many people are in the army on the front lines. It's incomparable numbers. It was millions against hundreds of thousands of people, and they are no longer from the peasantry. They are from the poorer regions mostly, but they are town dwellers and they're being paid. This is a very important difference.
Very important.
I don't like historical analogies at all, because we tend to draw those parallels, but we focus on resemblances, while the most important things are the differences. Societies change, economic models change. But what is, I think, what can be drawn justly as a kind of parallel with the First World War is this war fatigue. It settles in around 2 years after the start of the hostilities. For a big country, it usually has enough stamina to adapt to these war conditions, but after the second year, they kind of become tired of it, especially if, unlike in the Second World War, there are no results. And this war is now mired in what has been called the trenches war 100 years ago. So here I would grant you a resemblance.
Yeah. Guys, I think I have to wrap it up, unfortunately, for today. I wish we could have gone way more in discussion with you, but let's give a big applause and a big thank you for Ekaterina Schulmann.
Yeah, I like this live stream, and it was very useful for me to watch. I want to tell a couple of words before, yes, because this question, people asking this question pretty often. Even people were asking me, like, is it possible that people will stop fighting? But Satan, you can see Ekaterina Schulmann, as she said that people, like, and I completely agree here, in the 70s, 100 years ago, there was millions of people who was fighting. Right now, it's incomparable, of course, hundred thousands of people fighting. 100,000 is not millions. And still, they are paying them to this, and it looks a little bit like voluntarily, a little bit, but it doesn't mean that it is voluntarily, of course not. A lot of people forcing and mobilized. That's one of the thing, and it looks on paper anyway that, I mean, you got it, like a lot of people, of course, forced, but they afraid. Russian government afraid to do second mobilization, like, to be honest, first partial mobilization, like they called, to finish. Like, they didn't finish this, but they're afraid to start second mobilization, especially before presidential elections, so-called, because you know why so-called. Anyway, the thing that I completely agree with her. It was very interesting for me to watch this video with you. I like that she was explaining this in English. Of course, obviously, the best, the most tasty live streams and information she's giving in Russian language, it is the best one. She's giving information much more, I believe, interesting. I believe she's, in Russian language, it is more consistently. You can find her program. It is called Status. You can pretty easily find her channel, which is named by her name, Ekaterina Schulmann. And she's kind of famous and professional, the best ever expert scientist, expert about Russia itself. And yes, I'm happy that I tried today something new. I watched today with you Ekaterina Schulmann. That was amazing. I will be happy if you will leave your likes. It would be amazing too. You can leave your comments. It would be nice too. And thank you for your patience. And also, you can help me in Buy Me a Coffee. I'm trying to save money for my first ever car. It would be nice. But as for today, you need to know that you're amazing, you're enough, you're wonderful. Wishing you to be yourself as always. Be yourself, and as always, see you next time.